Hello, it is that time of week again, and dare I say it, time for Tottenham to play another game of football. The second week in a row of this 1 week a game nonsense. You miss the 2 games a week after a couple of weeks of it being away. Maybe I'm just tempting fate with how bad the season's gone, but ironically, I'm more nervous about this weekend's game against Ipswich than I was last week against Manchester United. You know, we've beaten Man United 3 times now this season, and Ipswich gave us a really, really tough time when they beat us earlier in the season in our own house as well, which is absolutely crazy. And they are capable of doing more damage to Tottenham regardless of the situation, regardless of the fact that we are getting players back from injury, that we've won 2 Premier League games in a row, that we are picking up a little bit of momentum under Ange Postecoglou. This game against Ipswich on Saturday afternoon is going to be very, very difficult. It is not going to be a walkover. So strap yourselves in and let's get ready to break down how Tottenham can avoid losing to Kieran McKenna and the Tractor Boys for a second time this campaign. So we all know the situation at this point. Ipswich are 3rd from bottom. They have the chance to move out of the relegation zone with a win against Spurs this weekend. If Wolves don't win as well, they are the team within touching distance of McKenna's team. Tottenham, meanwhile, I believe can go up to 12th or 11th. I think we can go a point behind Brentford in the Premier League table and then just a couple behind Brighton and edge ever closer to that top half. Is it possible that Tottenham could still snatch a place in one of the European competitions next season? It seems impossible at the moment, but the end of the campaign is a long way off still, and if you put on a run towards the end of the season, anything can happen. So I don't think there's any point ruling it out yet. However, if we want to do something like that, these are the games we have to be winning. Now, a lot of people have made their judgments on Ange Postecoglou based on the fact that we've dropped points to the likes of Crystal Palace, to Leicester, to Ipswich, to whoever else it may be in the bottom half of the table. And this is the perfect opportunity for Spurs and Postecoglou to bounce back and shut up the haters and those that want Ange out of the clubs. But they do have to put in the performance and pick up the 3 points. And it is never that simple in the top flight of English football. We all know that. Ipswich, a team fighting relegation, they're going to battle with all of their might. And when you look on paper at the team Ipswich have, they actually have a very good team. Jack Clarke, formerly of Tottenham, is going to be out to prove a point against his old club. Amari Hutchinson absolutely tore us a new one at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium earlier in the season. Liam Delap is on fire and linked with a whole host of Premier League clubs heading into the summer transfer window. Sammy Smodics scored against us in the return fixture and he is coming back from injury. They have good players in their squad, and it just goes to show how competitive that Premier League table is at the moment and just in general these days. So what is it going to take for Tottenham to be able to dismantle Ipswich and just leave Portman Road with 3 points? Because that's what every Tottenham fan wants to see this weekend, is just a nice, straightforward, routine victory. Well, I'm sorry to disappoint those of you watching that think it's going to be that way. I don't think there is any chance of Spurs rocking up in East Anglia and just rolling Ipswich over. So I think we have to consider the fact that we are coming out of a bad run of form. I think we have to consider the fact that Ipswich picked up a very, very good result against Aston Villa in the Premier League at Villa Park last week, by the way. And bear in mind, that's a ground that we lost at a few weeks ago in the FA Cup. Anybody can beat anyone in the Premier League. And the good news for Spurs and for Ange Postecoglou is he does have those bodies back and available from injury. Now, I am recording this on Thursday night before Ange has done his press conference. So if you are watching this and there's some team news that I've missed or ill-judged heading into the game, then I do apologise. But from my understanding, the players available for this game are those that we had in the win over Manchester United last weekend. Obviously, Destiny Udogie was on the bench but didn't come off. I expect him to come back into the fold properly this weekend. The likes of Brennan Johnson, the likes of James Maddison, back and available for Spurs as well. Timo Werner nearing a return, but as far as I understand it, Mickey van der Ven and Christian Romero, alongside Richarlison and Dominic Solanke, will still be unavailable for this one. However, they're hopefully both nearing a return, and it would be Very, very timely for them to return before those Europa League games. It looks like it's going to be against AZ Alkmaar and Troy Parrott, or against Real Sociedad, two tough teams to face in the last 16 of that competition. But back to the matter at hand. How can Tottenham beat Ipswich? How can they get their revenge on them for the game earlier in the season? Well, it's very, very simple. Cut out the mistakes, cut out the sloppiness, and play how we know we can play. I think we saw a little bit more of a return to the Ange Postecoglou way against Manchester United in terms of playing on the front foot, being aggressive, playing high up the pitch, dominating the ball. And I do think we will see that again at Portman Road against Ipswich. I think it's natural to control more of the ball against the weaker sides, but Ipswich will like that just fine, and they will aim to hit us on the counter-attack. They've got the wingers and the forwards to be able to do that, and it's about being defensively sound, defensively solid, and stopping those transitions. I think in the games that we've lost in recent weeks against Villa and Liverpool, the midfield has been a huge issue, and I see that being a potential problem again against Ipswich. Rodrigo Bentancur's been very, very hot and cold in the middle of that park. Lucas Bergvall, he's looked a little bit leggy at times. Pat Matassar and Yves Bissouma as well, not particularly had the best periods of their Spurs career. James Maddison coming back into the fold does take away that little bit more of a defensive approach when you head into these games, so we need to strike that balance, and I'll come on to that when I build my lineup in a couple of minutes. I do think this is the week to rest Dejan Kulusevski as well, because we have that huge game against Manchester City at home next week, and then, as I've already mentioned, the Europa League games. But that midfield area is so crucial. We have to be first to the ball, we have to be physical, and we have to not get caught on the counter-attack and leave those huge gap for players to run into, like we saw against Leicester at home. They are going to be so crucial, and it's going to be very interesting if Destiny Udogie comes back into the fold, whether Ange Postecoglou goes with Jed Spence or Pedro Porro at right back, because I think Pedro Porro actually had a really good game against Manchester United last week, but so did Jed Spence on the left-hand side. So does that mean Udogie is banished to the bench again when he's back and ready to go, and we know the player he can be? It's a very interesting debate to have. So I've talked about what we need to do to snuff out the Ipswich threat. How are Tottenham going to be effective in this game? Well, Matthias Tell, I believe, will play as that striker again, and I can't see Heung-min Son getting dropped. So I think Brennan Johnson may come in from the start on the right wing for this game, and that just adds a little bit more pace across that front line. And we know when Brennan Johnson is on form and at his best, he can beat his man. I say that lightly. He can get down the touchline and he can deliver a good ball, or he can be that man who arrives at the perfect time when the ball is coming across the face of goal to tap in. And I'm highly anticipating something like that to happen in this game. I just think the Ipswich defence may be switching off at some point and losing their men, and we just pick up one of those sorts of goals that we've seen so often over the last sort of year or so under Ange Postecoglou, and that will be key. Matthias Tell looks so desperate to score against Manchester United, and he gave his absolute all, so I'm really also hoping that his effort and work rate pays off in this game and he gets his first Premier League goal. Obviously, we saw his first Tottenham goal against Aston Villa, which was fantastic. So I think it's going to be key, those wide areas and the pace we have, and also snuffing out the midfield on the transition, on the counter-attack. Do not let Ipswich go ahead, because then they will just shut up shop, low block, and we know we struggle with that sometimes. We need to be aggressive from the off, get the opening goal and move forward from there. And that's just an ideal situation. Me and you both know that that is never going to work out that way, because Tottenham are Tottenham, and ultimately Tottenham will always be Tottenham. But you never know. You can sit and hope ahead of every single weekend game, and maybe one of these weeks we will just have a very comfortable win. But it's not looking likely at the moment, although I do think this following starting 11 gives us the best chance of walking away with a comfortable 3 points in this game. I am going with Vicario back in goal. I thought he had a good returning game, keeping a clean sheet against Manchester United. Bit of a no-brainer there. I am going to put Destiny Udogie in at left back, give him some minutes after coming back from that injury. The back two of Ben Davies and Kevin Danso, I think that's self-explanatory with what we have available, and I'm going to go with Jed Spence at right back. Archie Gray was put on the bench for the first time in a long time against Manchester United. I'm going to put Archie Gray at central defensive midfielder until he does get that start in central defensive midfield, because he deserves it. I'm going to put him in there next to Rodrigo Bentancur, and James Maddison is going to sit in front of him and play how he did against United. Scored the winning goal, of course, and had a very good return from injury. And then we have that front three, which I think I've already mentioned. Heung-min Son on the left, Brennan Johnson on the right, and Matthias Tell through the middle, giving Kulusevski a rest, giving Basuma, Sarr more minutes on the bench. Bergvall deserves a bit of a rest as well, I would say. And I just think that's a very well-rounded and balanced team that is more than capable of beating Ipswich. We've snuck back into our sort of shells over recent months because we've seen some of the results we've picked up and the performances we've had, but we've got to remember that ultimately we are Tottenham and we are capable of picking up big wins against teams like this. And if you don't have that belief, it's never going to happen. So with that team, with who we'll have available on the bench, hopefully, I feel confident for this one. And I may look back on this video when I record reaction on Saturday afternoon, or it'll probably be Sunday, and I may have egg on my face, but that's what being a football fan, and particularly a Tottenham fan, is all about, isn't it? But let me know what lineup you would go for in this game. Where do you think the key battles are going to be? Is it going to be in that midfield, those wide areas? How can we take control and get a comfortable 3 points against an Ipswich team that know how to beat us very clearly? They've done it once already this season. They will want to do it again. It will boost their chances of survival. Are we just going to hand them 3 points to help them stay up? Or are we going to have no mercy and go out there and put on a performance that we've been missing for a long, long time and put together our third Premier League win in a row? Who knows? It's not going to be easy, but it's entirely possible. So thank you so much for watching the video. Please remember to leave a like on it and subscribe to the channel as well. It all helps me out massively and I appreciate it a ton. But for now, enjoy your weekend, enjoy the game. Let's hope Tottenham don't mess it up. It's a few big weeks coming up in the grand scheme of our season, so let's try and stay positive and hope we can carry on riding this upward trajectory. So that's it from me, and as always, come on you Spurs.